Hey, welcome back. I'm glad you found your way back into the PA universe. Today we've got a great interview for you. It's with Dr. Nicole Mason from Oklahoma. She is a PA that has a Doctor of Medical Science, and she's going to be talking about why it's so important for us to change our state laws. What's going on with our state laws? So she's going to be here talking about that. Come back right after this. So welcome back to the PA universe. Again, like I said, we've got Dr. Nicole Mason from Oklahoma here speaking with us. Dr. Mason, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Dale.
You bet. We bet. We're glad you could come into the universe for a time. So, Dr. Mason, there are 150,000 different ways that PAs got to where they are right now. Tell us a little bit about yours. What's your journey to being where you are now?
In 2005, I graduated from Midwestern University.
Awesome. So after that, came out working in what kind of practice?
So after that, I got a position with an internal medicine doctor in Decatur, Illinois. And so I worked with Dr. Richard Fritz for the next 10 years.
Was it 10 years? Holy cow. See, Nicole, so for everybody else that isn't into this, Nicole and I worked together in an emergency room for a period of time, so I've known Nicole for years. So I know the backstory, but everybody else doesn't. Dr. Fritz suddenly passed away while you all were taking care of thousands of patients. How many patients do you think were on your patient load at that time?
So at that time, I'm guessing 3,000 to 4,000 patients, maybe more. That's just a stab in the dark. So to just comment a little bit on your backstory. So I started working with Dr. Fritz in 2005. In 2006, I started a per diem position in the local emergency department, which is where I met you, Dale. And that was because I had big buco student loans. My brain could have at that point bought a pretty nice house. And I was young, I was single, I didn't have really anything better to do. So I spent the next couple of years spending every free second I had working a job. And so I worked with you for a couple of years until I paid off my student loans. But I continued to work with Dr. Fritz for the next 10 years. And to be honest, I would still be in Decatur, Illinois, working with him today if in 2015 he hadn't gotten suddenly ill and very suddenly and surprisingly passed away.
Yeah.
I was actually rounding at the hospital on his patients. Backtrack. I was actually at the hospital rounding on our patients when he died.
Yeah, so tell me this, and I know we could spend an hour just on that, but tell me this. I know that took an emotional toll on you, but I also know that it took a pretty big professional toll on you. Tell me what happened when he passed away to those 3,000 to 4,000 patients and the care that you two gave them. What happened?
So when he passed away, because of the state of Illinois laws regarding PAs, he was a solo practice physician, so his practice had to immediately dissolve. And so that meant that although I was alive and well, and as I mentioned, was even when he was sick and died, actively doing what I had been doing and trained to do for the past 10 years, I could, by law, from the moment he died on, no longer provide any care. And so that meant that patients suddenly, any refills they needed, any medical advice they needed, any outstanding lab work that hadn't been answered in our office, I could no longer provide any of that care for them. So there were 3,000 to 5,000 patients that suddenly could not have any care and were scrambling. The entire city basically was scrambling to take on the load of his practice and the sudden dissolving of it that state mandates forced.
Yeah, so the reason I know this from a different angle is, so I worked in neurosurgery for several years. I took a job in trauma where I'm at now, and I love it. but I did family practice for 10 months while I waited for that trauma to open up. We knew that was coming. It wasn't something that I sought to do, but I needed to do something. I wanted to help out in the community. I certainly wanted to make some money. And so I did family practice for 10 months. In that 10 months is when Dr. Fritz passed away. And I remember the call from the CEO and then again from a couple of the vice presidents, different days, to our practice saying, we need you to take patients. We are scrambling in our city of what, 78,000? Now we have, 3, 4, maybe up to 5,000 people suddenly without a doctor. So I just want to make sure, I want to clarify, this is a great point. So you're telling me that the day before Dr. Fritz died, if I had seen him and he had ordered labs and a chest x-ray and EKG, he passed away the very next day, or maybe even the day he passed away, those are no longer able to be interpreted by you because he wasn't there, and any kind of treatment on those results could not be initiated because you weren't able to do it because of the state laws. Is that true?
That's true. Not only any tests that he had ordered, but any tests that I had ordered.
Wow. Let me touch on the 3, 4, 5,000 patients losing a provider all of a sudden. Does that still happen? Is that still happening in Illinois or in Oklahoma, in other states? Is that still the rule, still the law? Do you know?
To the best of my knowledge, in the state of Illinois, that is still the rule. Now, nurse practitioners, that's not the case. So if in 2021, my understanding from my nurse practitioner colleague that I worked with after Dr. Fritz died is that if I had been a nurse practitioner working in Dr. Fritz's office the day that he died, the next day I could have walked in and nothing would have changed.
Wow,
but as
really?
A PA, despite the fact that I now have almost 16 years of experience, I still would have to stop practicing medicine the very next day. Is it like that in all states? No, it's not. North Dakota is a state where you can have autonomy in practice. So that means you don't have to have state mandated supervision.
Yep.
And my understanding is that Utah has also passed that legislation. It's not gone into effect yet. But
Yes.
kids that have had 10,000 hours of experience no longer have to practice under state mandated physician supervision. And that really, I'd like to say, goes along with a lot of the emerging research for PAs has shown. So PAs in general tend to be excellent clinicians and not very involved in anything else, including advocating for themselves or explaining what we're capable of. But thankfully, there have been a few researchers in the last few years who have taken a look at PAs and their outcomes and different scenarios and have found out that, as we would expect, considering PAs are trained in the physician model, that our outcomes are similar or equivalent to those of physicians. So taking away these state mandates, really all it does is take away antiquated laws and helps us better serve our patients and flows from what the research has shown to be effective and true.
Yeah, I'll tell you my spiel on this, and I've said it 1,000 times, so I've got this down. This is my elevator talk. So for me, I would say when a PA comes out, and let's say they go into family practice and they have a collaborative physician, and when they first come out, depending on what they did before PA school, depending on their rotations, they're going to see a certain percentage of their patients, and they're not going to need any interaction, certainly no supervision from that collaborative physician. So my spiel is that let's say you're brand new out of school and you're in family practice, you probably don't need a physician to hold your hand through an otitis media. You don't. You know how to diagnose it. You know how to treat it. You know how to follow up with it. There you go. So that one's off the table. Let's start there. I wouldn't need, as a brand new PA out of school, I wouldn't need supervision with that. And that's just one of many. So we have this bank of things that we talk about at the practice level of, listen, I got this. If I have questions, I'll holler at you. And as my experience goes, as my skill set grows. That bank of things that I don't need supervision on grows and grows and grows. And it's no different from the MDs or DOs. You know, when the family practice MD comes out, he's hooked with another MD, and he asks questions, he or she asks questions, they ask. And the thought that that's somehow bizarre or weird that you would every once in a while ask questions, every medical professional does that. But I have this bank of knowledge and experience, and I don't need my hand held through certain things, and that bank grows and grows. My favorite mantra with this, when people say, yeah, but you're going to have some PAs, you know, that are going to hurt somebody, are going to kill somebody. So listen, by and large, the PAs, we've proven through studies, the PAs are competent and we're skilled. And if I do a good job, give me a paycheck. If I do a bad job, reprimand me. If I do something egregious, take my license from me. That's it. If we find that we've got, just like they had found in the past of MDs and DOs that did some egregious things, they took their license, do the same thing to PAs and the NPs. Weed out the ones that really shouldn't be there. But by and large, man, we're skilled and we're experienced and we're competent. And I think if we can get to the point where we say at the practice level, we will decide as a practice what the MD does, what the DO does, what the PA does, what the NP does. And we'll treat patients, and we'll be rock stars in our own practice, and let's move ahead for patient care. So that's my spiel.
So the issue of autonomy in practice and mandated state supervision really stems from the question, what is the minimal amount of training that is necessary to be safe for the patients that we provide? Okay. For physicians, they've decided that the minimum amount of undergraduate medical training is 130 weeks. But if you look at NPs, to get a doctorate NP, they get about 75 credit hours. Again, not equivalent to weeks of clinical training, but that's how they do it with NPs. With their master's level NPs, which many master's level NPs practice autonomously in about half the states of the United States, it's in the late, 57, 58, somewhere around there. Okay. So the question really becomes, do we need 130 weeks, of clinical training to be the minimum, or is it less? And I think that largely speaks to a lot of the questions that the states and legislators have been asking. So the natural next question would be, where do PAs sit in that hierarchy? PAs, according to the 2015 PA report, which is the most recent report available, PAs get about 113 weeks of clinical training for their programs. So that gives you a 17-week difference between PAs and physicians. And so the question becomes, is that 17 weeks, which is about 4 months, maybe even a little less than 4 months, is that training difference sufficient enough to require supervision for the next 30 years for a different profession? Sure. When you start to add on the fact that PAs, before they matriculate into their PA program, again, this is PAEA data, they have more than 3,000 hours of direct patient care experience before entry into PA programs, compared to physicians who it's a minority get any patient care experience. I read one study that it was like 17% get any direct patient care experience before they enter school. So if you compare really the PA model with prior direct patient care experience plus the rigorous program that we have versus the physician model, which is minimum of 130 weeks, no really mandated patient direct care experience before PA school. And I would argue very strongly that no, there's not an appreciable difference in the end that requires state mandated forever supervision within the profession. So then you get into the question that comes invariably next, which is that of residency. So many physicians and PAs as well, and other professionals and legislators who have no idea what's going on, all say, but the residency. Physicians have residencies. without really looking truly what it is. So physicians have decided that you do so many continuing medical education hours plus supervision in a specific specialty, and then you get to practice autonomously, whether it's 3 years or 7 years, or you're a subspecialty or whatever. PAs don't have that specific numbered years, hours of supervision. We get it the entirety of our profession until the last couple of years. But despite all of that, what we really need to look at is the states and their requirements for physicians and residents. In 33 out of the 50 states, doctors of osteopathy, so DOs, can practice independently without a residency. They need 1 year of training called an internship. They don't graduate from the residency in 33 out of 50 states in order to have an independent license. For physicians that have MDs, it's even more. It's 36 out of 50. They only have to have 1 year of internship before they can have an unrestricted license. So,
I did not know that.
So then the question really becomes, what is the difference? And the answer is not much. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of the states, such as Minnesota and Maine and North Dakota and Utah, starting to really take a look at this and say, hey, look, PAs, the research and the data shows that their outcomes are the same. They're showing that, in half the states, NPs have autonomy and that PAs and NPs are indistinguishable in their roles. If you look at, this is another big issue that physicians like to push, which is that of patient harm, which is what we should all be concerned about. And they say, well, if we let NPs and PAs practice independently, they're going to harm patients. But if you look at malpractice claims, there was a nice study by Brock in 2016 or 2018 that showed per 1,000 physicians, there were something like in the neighborhood of 11 to 19 malpractice claims versus PAs, it's like 1.4 to 2.4 per 1,000 PAs. So PAs in general aren't the ones being sued. It's the physicians.
So, Dr. Mason, I guess to wrap this up, I have to believe that your story of working with a physician that passed away, or even someone else's that moved, or that changed, positions in the community or whatever, is not unique. And so I have to believe that happens all the time. So I guess we just need to be more fervent and trying to get some of this stuff changed. In each state, again, like we just talked, it sounds like each state is going to do their own thing. They're going to decide, what the PAs can and can't do. And we need to, in each of our state practices, to all the people who are out there listening, we need to partner with our state organizations. There are other organizations out there that are championing this, and we need to make sure that the legislators know that this is happening, and that's really restricting the patient care and the volume of patients that can be cared for, and it's ultimately restricting our trade. That we need to work on this. So, I thank you for being here, and again, I think we just need to get on the stick, and we need to quit sitting back in our chairs and watching this happen, and we need to be more proactive and get out there and change the state laws, state mandates that basically are stopping us from being able to step into the position that you should have been able to step into in Illinois.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dale.
You bet. So I think we're going to have you back soon. I think if nothing else, we're going to talk about next time. We're going to talk about the doctoral PA programs and how the doctor for the PAs can be utilized and what can grow out of that, how it can help our profession. So you'll come back, won't you?
I will, definitely.
Sweet. Let's do it. Thank you, Dr. Mason. We will talk to you next time.
Thanks. Bye, Dale.
Hey, that's our episode for today. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here in the PA universe. If you would, hit that subscribe button so the next time the new episode drops, you'll be notified. Also, if you want, shoot us an email at the email address down at the bottom. just let us know in comment section what we can do differently. We're still growing. We're still learning how to do this. And so we need suggestions. So if there's something you want different, something you think would be better, an interview you would like to see, let us know. Again, thanks for coming to the PA Universe. Now, back to the real world. We're out.